Michael Arnold, who joins me now here on the set of the News Hour. He is from TRT World Research Department. Michael, you've been listening into our Syria coverage from the top of the hour. Francis, who joined us from Zagreb, and he mentioned Borrell's references to that everyone needs to work their way back to this landmark deal that was signed back in 2016 between Turkey and the European Union, where Turkey would actually stem the flow of this mass migration, hundreds of thousands of not only Syrians, but also other refugees who want to get to Europe. It's Turkey's responsibility. Now that Turkey's saying, all right, I'm not going to stop anybody who wants to leave my country. Is this effectively the breakdown of this deal?
Look, I don't think we're at a point now where we can say it's a breakdown of the deal. But as we've been discussing over the last few days, it's very clear that not only from the Turkish perspective, but if we just look at this in objective terms, that the European Union has not stood up to its end of the bargain. Whether this concerns the financial support for the refugees themselves, the voluntary resettlement program, where they were supposed to remove a certain number of refugees who were already living in Turkey into the European Union. Those numbers have not been met as well.
This was going to be a mass resettlement program, but they've only done about 25,000 in the last 3 years, which is not the numbers that we all hoped for.
Absolutely. So, I think if we look at those things in the holistic picture, it's very clear from the Turkish point of view that they have not been supported by their EU partners in this. So, I think it's a bit of a stretch at this point to say that the deal has broken down, because clearly both sides want to come back to that point where the actual terms of the deal are being enforced. But definitely it's on the rocks in that regard. And, I think it's important to add, outside of the framework of this deal in general, on the level of a humanitarian outlook, the fact that the European Union would like up to 4 million refugees, close to, living in Turkey, to stay in Turkey and not have the opportunity to go to Europe, even if they wanted to. This demonstrates some sort of problematic aspects of the European worldview, which I don't think can be discounted, because it's affecting the impact of everyday life. So if we're connecting it back to this ceasefire agreement, which we've seen, I think aside from everything else we've been discussing, what this does is it buys some time now for the European side in particular to reassess their position and reassess what they might want to do to help not only in bring this deal back together, but to actually help stem the flow of humanitarian problems.
From a Turkish perspective, you'll often hear the criticism that Europe is not genuine. They've been playing with us since the 1960s in terms of making us wait for accession into the European Union some way or another. And it could be argued they have a point, but we're not here to do that. We are here to actually sort of analyze this. Is it, when push comes to shove, when Turkey actually opens the gates, we can finally see, is this what's going to be the stimulus, the impetus to actually maybe find ways to revive this deal and make it work for both sides? Because at the end of the day, if this deal breaks down, we can't imagine what's in store here.
Sure, I think that's a really good point, and I think we've already seen that. The fact from the very first day when the Turkish government said that we're no longer going to prevent people from leaving the borders, right away you saw emergency meetings happening between EU ministers. So I think this is the only thing that has stimulated Europe to move. It's unfortunate that it had to come to that point. So the point I think we can make here is, regardless of whatever criticisms there may be of Turkey in this regard, the fact is, and this is an undeniable fact, is that allowing this to happen has actually stimulated the discussion, and hopefully, as you said, coming towards a point where this deal can work for both sides, and in the larger picture, coming to a point where there can be relief for the people in Idlib and Syria in particular.
I think you're right. It may have stimulated the discussion, and hopefully we can get somewhere. But one thing is for sure, the millions of Syrian refugees continue to suffer. Let's hope that we can actually use the ceasefire window and use it as a window to deliver much needed aid to southern Idlib. All right.
Absolutely.
Michael, thank you very much.